Using plugins saves time, and using the plugins correctly saves even more time. In this video, I want to show you 7 things you can do to get the most out of any DaVinci Resolve plugin, whether it's a free plugin or something that you paid for. Right here, I have a logo animated with WippAnimate, which is my animation tool. Let's say I wanted to take the same animation and put it on this logo without having to reset up that entire thing. To do that, we can use something called paste attributes. And to set that up, all I have to do is copy the first clip, which has the effect, and then on the second clip, what I'm going to do is right click and come up to paste attributes, or you can do Alt V for the keyboard shortcut. When I do this, I want to make sure I'm only selecting the fusion effects, and when I press apply, it's going to take that same animation and put it on this logo. Now in this case, I'd want to come in here and change the size to make that a bit smaller, but as you can see, this is a much faster setup than recreating this entire animation every time you want to use this animation throughout your project. Going hand in hand with that is the remove attributes option, and you can do that by right clicking and coming up to remove attributes. This is really good if you want to take an effect off a bunch of clips at once, and for that we just have to select Fusion Effects and press apply, and that way it's going to delete all of the effects on this clip. And the next really important thing is using on-screen controls, so that way it's easier to adjust stuff and get it perfectly aligned. In DaVinci Resolve, if we come up to the Effects tab, under Titles, I'm going to scroll down until I find my callout titles, and I'm going to grab the second one and drop it right above this clip. And for this one, it's really nice. I can come into the inspector, I can move it around, I can change the callout position, but I can't use the tracker unless I have on-screen controls turned on. And to do that, you just have to come down to the bottom left, press this drop-down menu, and then choose Fusion Overlay. And when I do that, I get a bunch of stuff on the screen. I have these points so I can move the callout around. I have a box so I can change how big the callout title actually is. And importantly for this, I have this point tracker right here. Now all I have to do is drag this and put it over an object that I want to track, maybe make this box a little bit smaller, and then press the track forward and back button. And just like that, the title is now attached to that point. I might want to come in here and change the anchor and then move this around just so it looks a little bit nicer. And going hand in hand with that, let's say you were coming to the box controls and you wanted to make this color something that matches the image. I can't just take the eyedropper and move this around the screen because this is a Fusion tool and it only works inside of the Fusion viewers. Kind of annoying. But what you can do is click in this color box and it opens up the system color picker, and using this pick screen color is actually going to pick any color on the screen or on a second monitor if you want to move over there to pick a brand color. Once I grab a blue that matches with the scene, I can close that, and then using these controls I can fine tune it and make this a little bit nicer of a blue. You can see that using on-screen controls makes it really easy to customize effects. The next thing I want to talk about is using a title template like one of my logo titles and customizing it once and not having to customize it every single time you want to use it. I want to make this a follow on Instagram animation that all I have to do is change the handle of the account and then I'm good to go. In the inspector, I'll come down to logo controls and press the browse button. Once I have the logo imported, I'll just add in some logo padding to bring that down and then come up to the line controls and switch this to a gradient to try and match that logo option. And again with this one, I can click on the first point and then click in this box and use the pick screen color to grab the colors from my logo. Once that's done, I'm going to come up to the text and do something like follow on Insta, and then we need to make this box a little bit wider, and I'm also going to come into the font and change this to something that I like. Now under text 2, I'm going to do the same thing, but this time I'm going to put the actual Instagram handle and again change the font to get that to match. But once we have this animation all set, instead of having to reset this up in every project, we can save this as a template, and there's 2 ways to do that. The first one is coming up to the media pool and using what is called power bins. If you don't have those on, you can come up to the 3 dots right here and then do show power bins. This is basically going to be some folders in the media pool that you can access in every project. And I can just take a title and drag this up and drop it right in the media pool. Then I can come in here, double click on the text and rename this to something like Instagram title. And now in my next project, or even later on in this project, I can just grab this, drag it down, and now I have that same title, and all I have to do is change the handle and it works no problem. The other way to do this, which also works for effects, is using my free WippTemplates macro tool. So you can find that link down below, and this allows you to save it into the effects tab with a custom image, so that way adding it in is just like adding the original template. Now some templates can be heavier and take a little bit longer to render, so these next few tips are going to be about that. Let's say I'm using my Whip 3D camera effect, and if I drag this down, what it does is creates a 3D camera animation. And right now in a 4K timeline, it's playing back no problem, but if I come down to the depth of field, even though this is way faster than it's been in previous versions, sometimes my playback will stutter on a 4K timeline. The first way to fix this is coming up to playback, coming down to render cache, and setting this to be user. When I do that, I might have to move the playhead back and forth a little bit. We're going to get a red line that as it turns blue means that it has cached that section of the clip. And when I play it again, you'll see I get 30 FPS, no problem, nice smooth playback in a 4K timeline. Now turning that off, if that render is taking way too long or you just have something that you don't want to accidentally mess up the cache, you can right click on it, come up to render in place, and then just render this out as a ProRes file, so that way it plays back like any normal video. Now, the one thing, if you're rendering out like a title animation, something that needs to have transparency so you can see through it, you'll need to use QuickTime and then come to the codec and choose DNxHR. And that way it preserves the transparency and you can see through it to whatever was in the background. Okay, let's say you're using something like my whip zoom tool. When I drag this down, what it does is creates a zoom animation. And the first time I use it, I typically go through and set all of my settings for this project. You know, I'll add in some motion blur, maybe change the animation so it's a bit longer, you know, change the size, use that on-screen control to change where it zooms in. And this tool allows you to go through, you can split the clip, and on the second version, we can move where it zoomed into and press the match button. And what that's gonna do is link those together so it zooms in and then it moves over to a different spot. But what's really cool is for duplicating these, I could copy and paste the clip somewhere else to reuse it, or I could go over to this clip, hold down Alt, and then just drag it over. And that's just gonna create a copy that's really fast, it's easy to move around. This also works really good if we're doing something like an Instagram logo animation. I can just hold down Alt and copy this, so that way I can have a second version to reuse later on in my project. Something pretty new to DaVinci Resolve is being able to add in templates without using the Effects tab. Right on the edit page, I can use Shift Space, type the name of my tool, like let's say Whip Background, and I'm gonna grab this top version because it's a new version coming to Editor Collection real soon. And when I add this in, you see it's going to generate the background, and in the inspector I can access all of the controls. Just a real quick sneak peek, if I come over to the overlay, we now have a grid option, as well as some particles that have movement and move around, and just create some really nice patterns with a ton of customization. You can even do something fun like adding in a logo to the particle system. But anyways, the last trick has to do with adjustment clips. There's a lot of templates out there that only have an effect version and don't have a generator version. For example, the generator version of Whip Zoom, if I come down to this, I can just drag it down, place it above the clip, and it's going to automatically apply to everything below it. Now Whip Zoom also has an effect version, and when I grab that, instead of applying above the clip, it's going to apply to the clip itself. And like I said, some tools only have the effect version. And if you use an adjustment clip, which I can come up to the effects tab, grab adjustment clip and place it right here, what I can do is add the effect to that adjustment clip, and it basically turns it into a generator. So with WippTemplates tools, you don't have to do this, but with some other tools, you can add a lot more flexibility and control just by throwing an adjustment clip in there. But the most important part about all of these tips is having good templates to work with, and that is why I built Editor Collection and Editor Titles, which their tools are featured all throughout this video. The goal with any tool I develop is to save you time. Editor Collection is full of time-saving utility tools that work in any style, let you create zooms, circle cameras, 3D screen effects, and animations, all without any keyframes. This is thanks to my powerful Anim Engine framework, which handles all of the animation for you. Just tell it when you want it to start, how long you want it to go, and it can figure out the rest. Also utilizing the Anim Engine, Editor Titles has the titles you need to add information to your videos. Like you saw with the logo title, they're highly customizable and can be easily customized to match you or your client's brand. Because of these tools, I rarely have to use keyframes when editing videos and save hours on each project. They make editing so much easier, a lot more fun, and allow me to focus on just being creative. Plus, you can buy these together and save 15% with the editor bundle. Check it out today at the link down below and let me know which workflow tip is going to save you the most time.